Hi, Mystery Recapped here. Today I'm going to explain a fantasy horror movie called Frankenstein. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. The movie opens in the year 1857 when a Danish Navy ship bound for the North Pole becomes stuck in ice. Under the orders of Captain Anderson, some hungry and exhausted sailors try to free the ship from the ice. At night, they hear an explosion in the distance, so an expedition sets out to investigate the source. They observe the snow covered in blood, although none of the sled dogs they find are injured. Soon, they find a wounded man and learn he is wearing a prosthetic leg right when they hear a ferocious roar in the distance and see a huge shadow. Next, the crew carries the wounded man to the ship while a gigantic creature also approaches them, and the crew shoots at him, but it barely affects the creature, and he manages to kill 6 men who get in the way. He boards the ship and demands that the captain hand over the wounded man, whose name is Victor, but the captain refuses. The creature is repeatedly shot with a blunderbuss and falls overboard, after which the captain fires at the ice and causes the creature to sink. Later, Captain Anderson introduces himself to Victor and asks about the creature, who has killed a lot of his men, but assures him that he is dead. A shaken Victor says that the creature is not dead and will soon return and kill many more men if they do not hand him over. A stunned captain asks who the hell created such a monster, and here, Victor shockingly admits that it was he. He then reveals his name is Victor Frankenstein and proceeds to tell his story. It all started when I got my first babysitter. The scene then cuts to a flashback of Victor's childhood, where we see how his father is a baron and an eminent surgeon who married Victor's mother mostly for convenience because of her considerable dowry and noble lineage. It turns out the father is almost absent from their lives, so most of the time Victor spends time with his mother, whom he loves more than anything. The father seems to despise them both, and he often gives medical lessons to Victor to make him a doctor like himself. If the boy cannot answer properly, the father proceeds to brutally beat him as punishment. One day, while the father is about to leave, the mother, who is pregnant, goes into labor, so Victor begs his father for help. The man rushes to process the delivery, and the mother gives birth to a healthy boy, but unfortunately, she dies in the process. This leaves Victor devastated, as his mother was all he had in the world, and he struggles to cope with the grief. To make matters worse, the father seems to love the new child, William, and raises him with love and affection. Meanwhile, Victor is so affected by his mother's death that he decides he will defeat death one day and become much more knowledgeable than his father. Sometime later, the Frankenstein family experiences a downfall where they lose most of their assets, except for only an estate. Victor's father also soon passes away, after which William is sent to Vienna, while Victor heads to London and then to Edinburgh, where he tries to expand the narrow confines of the academic world. The scene then cuts to 1855, where Victor stands before the disciplinary court of the Royal College of Medicine. He says that while humans cannot control birth, they may one day be able to control death. He shows the body of a shopkeeper who had been given to him shortly after death. The brain is exposed but still functional, including the spinal cord and vagus nerves. He has attached the arm of a carpenter with muscles, ligaments, and nerves connected. He then applies an electric current to each side, causing sudden spasms and movement, and the corpse even seems to groan.
Oh yeah, Victor.
However, the disciplinary committee states that this is a circus act and they consider it an abomination, believing that it is God who gives life and takes it away. Victor is expelled from the academy. However, a man who has been observing all of this approaches him afterward. He introduces himself as Heinrich Harlander and reveals that his niece Elizabeth is getting married to Victor's brother William. Harlander asks him if he truly believes he will be able to reconstruct a man and bring a completely new body to life. Victor says yes, after which Harlander explains that in 3 days they will meet with William and Elizabeth, and that day will change his destiny as he will show them something extraordinary. Days later, Victor meets Harlander, who shows him 4 anatomical plates with detailed drawings of nerves, veins, and arteries from dead bodies. He then reveals a 5th plate made of real flesh attached to wood. It comes from a skinned corpse preserved with resin, showing deeper parts of the body, including the area around the heart. Harlander says this could lead to healing, regeneration, and even eternal life. Victor agrees it may be possible. possible. So Harlander offers him unlimited support and resources for his research, but doesn't reveal his motive behind it. Just then, William and Elizabeth arrive, and the brothers are excited to be reunited after a long time. They all sit down for a meal together, but the mood soon turns tense when Elizabeth calls Victor foolish for his bizarre experiment. A few days later, Victor travels with his brother and Harlander to a remote place where there is a tower built as a water filtration plant to irrigate the fields. Victor now has everything he needs, including a pure silver lightning rod and strong bodies of men who are about to be executed. Later, in a street market, he comes across Elizabeth, so he follows her to the church and sees that she's going to confession. He sneaks into the confessional, pretends to be a priest, and speaks to her. During this, Elizabeth speaks badly about her fiancé's brother, saying he is a grotesque man who tries to manipulate everything and everyone around him. That, however, it turns out to be a joke, as Elizabeth had already seen him following her.
Guess I probably shouldn't have confessed to the necrophilia thing then,
says Victor. The two then go out to eat, and they even dance together, leading to them having a great time. In the following days, Victor sets up his workshop and asks William to supervise everything, while he returns to the city and continues seeing Elizabeth, during which time he starts developing feelings for her. One day, Harlander informs Victor that in a week there will be a nearby battle with many mangled bodies. Victor now only has a week to prepare everything, which puts him in a desperate situation. One day, Elizabeth arrives at his lab and Victor finally confesses his feelings for her, but Elizabeth makes it clear that she has already chosen William and runs away. As Harlander indicated, a battle takes place very close by, causing numerous corpses to lie in the snow. Victor focuses on those that are still well preserved, especially tall bodies with long limbs and intact heads. He takes them back to the lab where he dissects and rebuilds a body using selected parts, discarding the rest. One day, while the two are alone in the tower, Victor learns that Harlander is sick with syphilis and takes mercury for it. It turns out that this is the reason Harlander is funding the research, as he wants his brain to be placed into a new perfect body so that he can live longer. Hearing this, Victor is horrified and refuses.
I can cure a dick of death, but not syphilis,
which leads to a huge argument between them. Victor climbs to the top of the tower, where he places the lightning rod, while Harlander offers to give him everything he wants, including even Elizabeth, but Victor still refuses. Desperate, Harlander takes an important lightning rod essential for the experiment, so Victor tries to take it back. During the struggle, Harlander slips from a shaft, and even though Victor tries to save him, the old man eventually dies. Victor is horrified, but he moves the body and collects the lightning rod, which he places on the creature's head. Soon, a huge lightning strike hits, but despite this, the creation does not reanimate, so Victor believes he has failed and goes to bed. The next day, Victor is woken up by strange noises, and his eyes widen in shock when he sees the creature alive in front of him. This fills him with excitement, and he introduces himself, after which the creature also repeats his name. Victor teaches the creature to walk, and upon noticing that he is very strong, Victor decides to tie him up with chains. Weeks pass and the creature shows great strength, but there is no change in his language, and he does not say anything beyond Victor. One day, he accidentally cuts himself with a razor, and Victor is shocked to see how his wound instantly heals. Over time, he becomes frustrated by the creature's lack of intelligence, and starts to feel that he may have made a mistake. Days later, William and Elizabeth arrive at the tower and ask about Harlander. Victor tells them that he'll be back in a few days, and tries to act normal. While the brothers are busy, Elizabeth hears noises from the basement, so she goes to investigate and is shocked to find the creature. She is fascinated by him, and he is also stunned, as he has never seen a woman before. She then shows him her face and lets him see her delicate hands, while she inspects his scars.
Do you know how I got these scars?
Later, Elizabeth confronts Victor about the strange man in the basement, so he explains to her and William that this is his creation. He explains that the creature is strong and aggressive, so he is chained up for the safety of everyone. That evening, Elizabeth again arrives at the basement to meet the creature, during which he gives her a leaf as a gift. She says his name and asks him to repeat it, and he does so, but only after she leaves. Later, Victor becomes jealous that Elizabeth went to see him again and tells her she should not approach him, as he does not have intelligence, but she believes that his spirit may be purer than the common man, and says that she saw pain in his eyes, which is proof of intelligence. Later, Victor goes to see the creature and tries to teach him things, but when the creature does not respond, Victor begins brutally hitting him like his father used to do to him. In the end, the creature becomes so angry that he grabs the rod and brutally bends it, which scares Victor. He then goes to see William and says that the creature is so dangerous that he killed Harlander, and even shows reveals the dead body. William is shocked, while Victor says he does not want Elizabeth to know this, so he begs his brother to take her away. The next day, William says they must leave immediately for Vienna for some work and takes Elizabeth away from there. After they leave, Victor decides to destroy the whole tower, so he pours gasoline everywhere and prepares to burn it down. Elsewhere, Elizabeth tells William that she has a terrible feeling and asks him to turn the carriage around. Meanwhile, Victor sets the tower on fire while the creature cries for help and repeatedly says Victor. When Victor goes outside, he suddenly feels guilty and decides to go back, but when he opens the door, a burst of fire throws him outside and he loses his leg. Just then, William and Elizabeth arrive right as the tower explodes, leaving them horrified. The scene then cuts to the present, where Victor finishes telling his story to Captain Anderson, right when the creature bursts in with anger. He grabs the captain, who tells him to go ahead and kill him, which confirms his creator's story. The creature then realizes that Victor has told his side of this story, so he also decides to tell his side as well.
It all started when I saw a Shakira music video.
The scene then cuts to a flashback of the fire, during which the creature shouts Victor's name and begs for help, but to no avail. He manages to pull out the bar to which the chains were attached, after which he leaves and slides down a stream of water. Later, he wakes up on a shore, after which he heads into the woods and wears clothes found on dead people. He encounters some hunters who proceed to shoot him, but the creature is instantly healed by the shots and soon arrives at a nearby farm to hide. There, the creature takes shelter in the mill gears of a farm and watches a family where a blind old man interests him the most. The old man often teaches his granddaughter, which the creature observes, and through this, slowly learns how to speak. He wants to be a part of that family, so he begins helping them by gathering firewood and building a pen for their sheep. The family are amazed by this and thank their unseen benefactor as the spirit of the forest. The creature becomes their invisible guardian, and they even leave him clothes and bread in gratitude. Moments later, the family decides to head to the mountains to hunt wolves and will return only at the end of winter, but the old man refuses to leave and stays behind. After the family leaves, the creature finally appears in front of the old man, who welcomes him and notices he has difficulty speaking. The old man then touches him and asks if he was the one hiding in the gears of the mill, to which the creature says yes. From that day on, the old man and the creature start living together, sharing the food, fire, and company. The old man often asks him to read for him, so the creature also grabs a book and gradually learns how to read. Sometime later, the creature returns to the remains of the tower, where he finds fragments of Victor's notebook and realizes that he is not even a real person. He also finds an envelope with Victor's address written on it and a plaque with Elizabeth's image. When the creature returns to the farm, he is shocked to see the house being overrun by several wild wolves, so he rushes inside. The wolves attack him, but he easily manages to fight them off and drive them away. He then approaches the old man, who is badly injured, and during his last moments, the old man tells him he is a good man and a friend. He passes away just as the family returns home and is horrified to see the creature in their house. They begin chasing him and eventually shoot him multiple times, causing the creature to collapse into the snow, but he eventually wakes up days later and notices that his wounds have healed, though he feels more alone than ever, so he decides to visit his creator. The scene then cuts to Victor, who is getting ready for William's wedding and soon arrives at the bridal room. He apologizes to Elizabeth for what happened at the tower, but she angrily slaps him and kicks him out. She then looks at the leaf that the creature gave her and puts it in a book. Elsewhere, Victor notices a huge shadow and calls for the creature to just come out. The creature then appears and says he has come because he cannot live like this forever and needs a companion. However, Victor only mocks him and says it was hard for him to abandon madness, and now it is tempting him again. The creature reminds him that he can neither die nor live, but when Victor shows no compassion, the creature becomes very angry. He throws Victor against a piece of furniture, and the sound is heard by everyone in the hall. Later, Elizabeth arrives in the room and is shocked to see the creature, so she hugs him in excitement. Meanwhile, Victor picks up a gun to shoot the creature, but Elizabeth gets in the way and is hit instead. Just then, William arrives with other men, during which Victor claims the creature attacked her. The men rush to attack the creature, but he easily throws them aside, including William, who suffers a severe blow to his head when he is hit against some furniture. The creature then takes Elizabeth away from there, while Victor notices his brother is gravely wounded and apologizes to him. William then tells Victor that he is the real monster and passes away, leaving Victor devastated. Driven by grief, he grabs a shotgun and sets out to destroy his creation. Elsewhere, the creature brings Elizabeth to a cave where she tells him that she has always longed for something she could not define and that she found it in him. She eventually passes away, and soon Victor also arrives at the cave to find Elizabeth's dead body. The creature then appears and declares that unless Victor kills him, from this day forward, he will be Victor's master. After hurting him and making him bleed, the creature walks away, followed by his creator. From this day on, Victor continues chasing the creature and makes multiple attempts to kill him, but none of them are successful. Months later, they eventually reach the Arctic, where Victor has brought cartridges and dynamite to finish the creature. He sets up a camp at night, during which the creature appears and drags him through the snow, knocking over the lamp that sets the tent on fire. He then stabs Victor and notices that he has brought explosives to finish him, but the creature is not afraid of death, so he himself lights the cartridge and hopes this process will finally kill him. He tells Victor to run away, and as he does, the cartridge also explodes. Despite this, the creature is still alive, and his burned skin begins to regenerate, while Victor is in bad shape right when he is found by the crew members of the ship. The scene returns to the present when the creature tells the captain that the blood outside the tent was his own, and that he knows he will bleed and suffer, but it will never end. At this moment, Victor finally repents his actions and takes the creature's hands before apologizing to him. He places his hand on the creature and even calls him son while begging for forgiveness. Despite everything, the creature also feels remorse and finally accepts his apology and calls him father. Moments later, Victor finally succumbs to his wounds while the creature kisses him on the forehead and cries. Upon seeing all this, Captain Anderson is moved.
Yar, that was fucked up.
So he orders his men to let the creature go. The creature steps off, but before leaving, he pushes the ship with his enormous strength and manages to free it from the ice. This excites everyone, and the captain announces that they are returning home, which is met with applause from the entire crew. The movie then ends with the creature gazing toward the sunset as tears flow from his eyes.